In this episode, we're going to talk about safety management systems, or SMS. What exactly is a safety management system? What are the components? How can you implement a systems approach to managing safety in your organization? Well, guess what? We're going to get into all of that on this episode. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, powered by iReportSource, helping you manage safety one episode at a time. With the constant regulatory and workplace culture challenges businesses face, we'll provide you with all the relevant information necessary to achieve a safer, more productive workplace. No management theories, platitudes, or guru speak, just actionable info you can use right away. Now here's your host, the Safety Pro himself, Blaine Hoffman.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. As mentioned, safety management systems. So we're going to break all this down for you, but what we want to do is first define what a safety management system is exactly. A lot of folks have questions about that, and I've gotten emails back and forth about ISO this and ANSI that, and we'll get into some of the different standards that are out there as well. But in a nutshell, let's define what is a safety management system. Well, a safety management system, or SMS, it's a continuous improvement process that reduces hazards and ultimately it prevents incidents. Also, it protects the health and safety of your employees, and it should be integrated into the everyday processes throughout your organization. The adoption of an SMS framework, and of course the implementation of all the pieces that go into that, which we'll get into, it can have a pretty significant impact on protecting employees and enhancing your organization's performance and profitability. Now, safety requirements, they differ across various industries, right? The best performing organizations focus on continuous improvement that achieves ongoing reduction of risk with the ultimate goal of zero incidents. Yes, you heard me correctly. We do sometimes have to say that. And yes, just because you have no incidents in a given reporting period does not mean the organization is risk-free. Okay? I get that. I mean, like I always say, no injuries does not mean no risk. But the best companies, they know this, so they look at the individual components of the safety management system that are designed to achieve just that, lowered risk, which nets us lower or no injuries. So focusing on the how gets us to that big aspirational goal, which, of course, is what we often hear, and we kind of roll our eyes when we see it and hear it, of no accidents. So we know a safety management system, it's a continuous improvement process. It involves, integrating all sorts of pieces of a safety management system, of your safety and health programs, your culture, people, how you hire, all of this stuff. So we'll kind of break down, some of the pieces, the common pieces. But I want to go through, in this episode, I want to go through the sort of the history of a safety management system, its adoption, and where we are today and what you can do going forward. So let's talk about the recent history. So basically, this can impact general industry and eventually construction over the years, upcoming years, I should say. Once I start talking about this, you'll kind of see where the trends are, right? Now, the FAA, let's start with the Federal Aviation Administration. According to the FAA, their definition of a safety management system is the formal, top-down, organization-wide approach to managing safety risk and assuring the effectiveness of safety risk controls. And this includes systematic procedures, practices, policies, and, for the management of risk, all of it includes top-down everything. Now, since requiring a safety management system in March of 2015, the FAA says that the safety management systems, SMS, is becoming a standard throughout the aviation industry worldwide, not just in the U.S. It is recognized by the Joint Planning and Development Office, the International Civil Aviation Organization, and the Civil Aviation Authorities. And product and service providers also recognize this. This is the next step in the evolution of safety in aviation. So you're going to get into anybody that supplies aviation industry with, whether it's, aviation parts, engine, airframe components, manufacturers of aircraft, they're all going to have and implement an effective safety management system. Now, SMS is also becoming a standard for the management of safety beyond aviation. Similar management systems are used in the management of other critical areas such as quality, occupational safety and health, security, environment, things like that. Management systems approach is being used for like quality, security, and environmental things like that. So, we see that trend, right? We kind of see similarities in other areas of industry. Now, recognizing the organization's role in accident prevention, the FAA, safety management systems provide to not just the FAA, but anybody who holds an aviation certificate, like to operate in the aviation industry, provides the following items, and I'm going to read them from the FAA. A structured means of safety risk management decision-making, a means of demonstrating safety management capability before system failures occur, increased confidence in risk controls through structured safety assurance processes, an effective interface for knowledge sharing between regulator and certificate holder, and a safety promotion framework to support a sound safety culture. This is kind of broad, right? But they list that on their website, and you can look that up by searching FAA SMS. You just Google that, and you'll get their website. All right, so that's FAA, right? Well, let's get into another organization. Let's get into the Public Transportation Agency. The Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, the final rule published in 2018, requires certain operators of public transportation systems that receive federal funds to develop safety plans that include the processes and procedures necessary for implementing a safety management system. Among other requirements, the rule calls on agencies to report their safety management policy and processes for safety risk management, safety assurance, and safety promotion. So they got to report this, all right? You get federal funds and you're in, public transit. You could probably think of your regional transit authorities or, local transit authorities in your cities and states. They all have to have a safety management system. Now, as many safety pros already know, ISO has also developed a standard that will help organizations improve employee safety, reduce workplace risks, create, better, safer working conditions. And this is worldwide, right? This is the International Standards Organization. And of course, I'm talking about 45001. So we went from the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. We went from the Transportation Agency, right? Now we're getting into ISO. We're getting into some standards that are generally adopted and accepted worldwide. Now, let's talk a little bit about how we got 45001. There were some, bodies that participated, and they represented different countries. So anybody that participated in the development process for ISO 45001, they used other standards to build from, if that makes sense. We're talking ANSI Z10 participated in this. We've got the British OSAS 18001, the former safety and health management standard. We've got Canada's CSA Z1000 and ILO's OHSMS, those guidelines. They all were considered when developing the ISO 45001. So we can see where before we had different standards from different organizations or governing bodies. We now have sort of alignment when we look at 45001. There's even talk of OSHA's VPP getting aligned to ISO 45001. Look, you could see a definite trend emerging when it comes to safety management systems. Or I should put that another way. You can see a definite trend emerging when you talk about a systems approach to managing safety. We're starting to get some industry alignment around this approach. So in 2018, knowing that ISO 45001 was coming, of course, the National Safety Council, or NSC, some of you may have heard of them, they started investigating all of the, whatever the prevalent safety management system frameworks were, at the time, and identifying all of the things they had in common. They recognized that many companies were just getting completely bogged down with questions like, first one we tackled, what is a safety management system? How can it help me? Which framework is right for me or for my business? Is it ANSI Z10? Should we do VPP? Should we do ISO? Was OSAS at the time? Should we model it after another organization or regulated industry like the Transit Authority or FAA? They knew the research supported the benefits of implementing a safety management system. The National Safety Council, they really wanted clarity on what that looked like and, a simple way to illustrate what elements constitute a successful safety management system. So let's break down what the core features or functions look like. An effective safety management system has the following features or functions. People. We're just going to start with people. Nothing gets implemented without people who are committed, engaged, and motivated. Real safety change can't happen without a competent, skilled workforce. You need the right people in the right position within the organization. It isn't enough to have an incredibly motivated and engaged frontline, right? If all or most of middle and upper management is not engaged or supportive. So you need to put the right people in the right places in the organization from top to bottom. You can't skip any areas. I mean, let's flip that for a second. Let's say you get a CEO, you get a VP, you get upper management, you get middle management. They're highly engaged, but HR is disconnected. You just hire a bunch of temps that could do, you don't spend any time on the orientation, the hiring and selection process, the onboarding process to develop that culture. You're going to have some difficulties there. So that's an example of integrated, a systems approach. It starts with your people, all of your people, not just one level of the organization, all of them. So that was the first one, people. The next one, planning. Thinking ahead is half the battle of implementation of any initiative, really. So planning for foreseeable risks and the administrative parts of a management system will produce, of course, smoother rollouts and better measurement of SMS success. You need to be able to break down the individual elements needed, assess your current state, and, of course, measure those gaps in between. Those gaps, that's the space in which you will work, okay? So you have to be good at assessing current state. I can't stress that enough. You need as a gap assessment, and that's a big part of planning. Next, programs. Now, most companies have EHS programs that identify and control most hazards. You can, even monitor and measure operational impacts to EHS performance. And I go further, right? Even eliminate deviations from the management system. Individual programs must operate as part of the entire system, not independently. So think about machine safety as an example. You will need a robust maintenance management program in order to fully achieve the level of machine safety that you're going to demand out of your safety program. I mean, think about it. If machine safety is our big focus, who's looking at your maintenance management program? And are they aligned? This means measuring PMs that are past due, identifying maintenance items that are, they don't just achieve the level of critical uptime that you desire, but also safety, like sensors, overflow preventers, valves that you've identified as safety measures that prevent critical disasters from happening, right? So you're going to want to make sure you integrate safety with other areas of business programs. That is key, okay? It's this look across you need to have. You're starting to see now that SMS is all about taking safety out of its silo and laying it across the organization so that it touches every aspect. So we have people, planning, programs. Now we're talking about progress. To avoid complacency, and we all know complacency kills, companies need to, occasionally measure compliance with, regulatory and legal requirements, also audit their safety management system and review the SMS performance with upper management and senior leaders. So you need to be able to break down all the pieces of the SMS into logical parts, like electrical, confined spaces, PPE, even roles and responsibilities, within HR, as well as any frequent inspections that are required in your, safety program. I recommend identifying champions for each of these elements and have them own or have element owners as part of your progress check, right? How do you know you're progressing? You have to audit, okay? And this is more qualitative, okay? So have some, element owners, some champions that take on pieces of this. Get them outside the safety team. Get folks that, are, affected by some of these programs, and maybe outside the safety team. Get them some training and, how to audit for these things, and so that they understand the requirements of some of these programs and components of your management system. But get them to take a look at some of these things. So you're going to get buy-in. You're going to drive buy-in and accountability, okay? And this has to be an annual thing. Get them to objectively score that part of the element, how we're executing on each of these elements, like lockout, tagout, confined space, electrical, hiring, onboarding, our safety training process, what that looks like, and just really pick it apart, kick it around, and make sure it is performing at its best. Where can we improve? And identify, again, gaps. And then that's going to set us up. If we do this annual, as an annual function, it's going to set us up for what we need to do going forward. But you could break this down. If it's too big to consider annually, break each element of your SMS and spread it across the year. So each month, you've got a couple people doing, like this month it's electrical and confined spaces, and next month we're assessing these other. So you're only doing a couple at a time. There's ways to do it, right, to break it down. And that's part of planning and project management. But, progress, one common aspect of an effective safety management system is these organizations are really, really good at understanding how they're progressing. You need to get good at this as well. So whatever works for your organization, figure that piece out. The last P, I just realized these are all Ps. The last P is performance. Measures of performance need to be set and include both lagging indicators and leading indicators. And of course, you want to move towards predictive measures. So adopting these and evaluating safety metrics, among the entire business performance landscape is going to help companies solidify safety on equal footing with other key operational practices. Adopting the mindset of safe operations versus viewing safety apart from operations is what you want to go for. Think about this. Instead of asking how safety performance is doing, measure overall business performance with safety as a part of that measurement score. So if production was up, but so were incidents, then there should be an adjustment made to the productivity score as a result, right? Does that make sense? Again, this gets us past the whole conversation of looking at WIP, deliveries, sales altogether as a good indicator of how well we're doing, and then safety is separate. Safety performance impacts the others, and we should be able to reconcile, where we're falling behind on safety, but we're inching ahead in other areas. It might be as a result of cutting some corners. So does that make sense? So again, lay safety across the organization versus parking it in a silo. So people, planning, programs, progress, and performance. Those are key, all right? The challenge for many safety pros, and I know this all too well, I talk to a bunch of safety people regularly for my job. I have to, and that sounded bad, right? Like, I have to talk to these people. No, I love it. I love talking to safety pros. That's a challenge for a lot of us, is identifying the tools one can use to manage all of these moving parts, right? When we think of this holistically as a systems approach to safety, all of these moving parts, how are we going to manage all of these? And of course, if you know me by now, I'm going to say you got to be looking at a digital safety management system, like iReportSource or, whatever you decide or whatever you choose or whatever you use. You have to make sure you can efficiently stay on top of all these different elements, right? You got to be able to report and have others report the necessary information so the organization can work to reduce hazards. You got to be able to track all of the activities associated with those efforts that make them all work, right? You got to have access to all this data when you need it to make smarter decisions. And you've got to be able to look back so that you can assess your progress objectively and plan for future improvements. I've always boiled these down to what I call the 4 R's, okay? So this is Blaine's thing. Report, record, retrieve, and review. Your management system has to be able to support that, okay? Your digital management system, if you will. So your whatever systems or tools you cobble together, or if you get an all-in-one system, a management system like iReportSource, it doesn't matter. They have to, at a minimum, be able to help you achieve these 4 R's. Report, record, retrieve, and review. So 1 is report. Those are hazards, concerns, incidents, suggestions, etc. People have to be able to report things in a simple way with as few barriers as possible. And I've talked about this in the past before. You can have a suggestion form, but in order to submit one, I've got to stop my machine. I've got to walk across the plant. I have to pick up a form. I have to fill it out. Maybe I have to walk all the way back to my workstation to get the machine number or, I don't know, some more information. Then I got to walk back up to the front. I got to put it in a suggestion box. And, once a month, the safety committee goes through those. I mean, that delay in getting that suggestion floated to the top of the queue and somebody looking at it, I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm a safety professional, and I'm looking at that going, yeah, I've got a lot of other things I can do. So, look, it's got to be simple. It isn't enough to say, yeah, people can write stuff down and send it in, or they could email me if they want. Well, there's 4 workstations for 120 people out on the production floor. How likely is it you're going to get a lot of emails for that stuff? So, look, make it super simple. People have to be able to report things, hazards, concerns, incidents, suggestions, everything. Anything that needs to be reported. Number 2, record. I've got to be able to record the activities that are taking place in support of or as a result of our safety management system. So training, observations, inspections, audits, even injuries and illnesses, environmental data, things like that. I've got to be able to record this stuff. Like OSHA requires some things to be recorded, other stuff that we self-impose, but I got to be able to record that stuff. 3, retrieve. I've got to be able to produce reports and records when needed in a timely manner and for anyone needing it. So a regulator, an attorney for a workers' comp claim, or maybe it's the state, maybe it's workers' comp coming in to do an assessment. FM Global comes in and wants to see records of this and reports of that. You've got to be able to retrieve this stuff in a timely manner. It's got to be organized, right? I'm going to tell you right now, I used to use this little trick when I would do gap assessments of facilities that are trying to pursue VPP. It was a trick. I'm going to give you some inside baseball here, but I would ask for some obscure documents, and I would wait to see how long it took for them to get it, how the look on their face when they had to think, oh man, where do we keep that? Is that in, hey Joe, is that it? Is that in Bob's file cabinet? You get stuff like that. And that tells me they aren't able to retrieve things very well if they needed it, which tells me they're not very well organized. So, and that was report, record, retrieve, and the 4th one, review. You have to have the ability to look at all relevant data, right? It's going to tell a story of where you've been, what has taken place, and where you need to go in real time and as easily as possible. You shouldn't have to open 15 spreadsheets, copy cells, combine and merge workbooks and then run pivot tables and to get, we've got hand lacerations that are really, causing us problems in this plant at this department. You should know. You should have a dashboard, a live dashboard where you could just go at any day, any time, and see exactly what is happening right now. And then maybe you just flip a little toggle there on the screen that says year to date, month to date, or maybe I'm looking at actual versus planned. What is our goal? Whatever that is, you should be able to do it quite simply, okay? Look, it gets difficult to impossible to do this manually in most organizations. Any organization of appreciable size or with any company that has complex processes. So please consider looking into a system to help you manage safety more efficiently and will pay you back the time and frustration so you can get out from behind the desk, spend it where it matters most, out there with your people where the work happens, building relationships, winning hearts and minds, all that good stuff we talk about. Take a look at some of the things we hate to do associated with our job as safety pros. Almost every safety pro I talk to, it's the same stuff. It's this administrative burden, and anything we have available to us that makes that super simple, keeps us compliant, but also at our fingertips gives us data we need to make smart decisions. Sign me up. Okay, so look, there you have it. Consider that. It's not a big commercial. Whatever you decide to do, make sure it can, help you do those 4 R's. It's the 4 R's of safety. We're going to make that a thing. There you go. Again, a safety management system, a continuous improvement process that reduces hazards, prevents incidents, and it protects the health and safety of your employees and should be integrated into everyday processes throughout the organization across the business. Investing in an SMS makes a measurable impact on your bottom line and can be viewed as a competitive advantage in the industry. So think about that. Let me know what you think. Do you consider your organization to be running an effective safety management system, or do you have safety programs that exist still and you're trying to get there? Let me know what you think. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Don't forget to mention Blaine J. Hoffman. You can find me there. And if we're not connected, what are you waiting for? Let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm on there. I'm doing all kinds of stuff on LinkedIn all the time. Posts about these podcasts, about articles, about topics, and doing goofy videos. Talk to a lot of safety pros on LinkedIn. So let's connect on LinkedIn. Hit the link in the show notes. If you're on Spotify, links in show notes don't work. So you can always go to thesafetypropodcast.com to get information about this episode as well. Until the next Safety Pro Podcast episode, as always, be safe.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Safety Pro Podcast, powered by iReportSource, the all-in-one digital safety solution. For info on how you can request a free demo on all the capabilities of iReportSource to streamline your business's safety management system, head over to thesafetypropodcast.com. We look forward to helping you manage safety on the next episode of the Safety Pro Podcast.